Chapter 4. The New Secular Project. The Four Faces of the Triangle of the NWO. How did our world get into such a tangled mess? The cobweb looks intricate, but is very frail indeed. And is it surprising that the creator of the heavens and earth coined this similitude in the Quran in the chapter entitled The Spider? Upon leaving the US and moving to Egypt to study Arabic and live in an Islamic community, I curtailed my extracurricular studies, but never kept my eyes off the ball. From my eclectic research, I realized that the pyramid structure of the NWO and all its compartmentalizations are composed of four main camps. Let me state them for the record, so you can become aware of their deceptions and ongoing planning against the vast population. True enough, Shaitan likes to diversify deluded soldiers. Once we become aware of their methods of madness, you will have a better chance of living out your years in peace and tranquility. The fist face of the globalist clubhouse is the old order of Weishaupt's Perfectibilists, comprised mostly of men who gravitate towards agnosticism and atheism. Men who are usually Bibliophiles, as many during the so-called Enlightenment age were called Encyclopidists. This group consists of men and women of letters, and men who bow at the altar of eugenics and scientism. This cadre of initiates can be from any background and usually join the order through fraternal orders and fraternities. The wealthy ones from old fondi families join orders like Skull and Bones and take the elevator ride to the leadership positions of the order, and are strategically placed in positions of power, like assistants to presidents, government positions, and take industrial complex roles. Their stated goal, according to Weishaupt's discovered writings, was to overthrow the church and monarchies. Basically, a call to overthrow and infiltrate the power structures that existed at that time, monarchies and the Vatican. The order infiltrated all Freemasonic lodges and seized quiet power through degrees and reaches of influence. At the pinnacle of this triangle is the Rothschild banking family, whose influence is far-reaching and pervasive. The second face of the triangle is the Shabbatian Zionist Club, who have connections with the Chabad Lubavitch, those with a Lurian Kabbalist bent and followers of the Jacob Frank heresy. This side of the triangle has access to endless promissory notes, inside trading and extortion. Their Kabbalist heresies led this group into the philosophy of redemption through sin, something like Rasputin was into, and their sexual perversions and outrages know no limits. One thinks of Epstein in this group, and deranged leaders like Benjamin Netanyahu, who has committed to one of the most outrageous genocides the world has ever seen. The last two sides of the pyramid represent the mystical side of Shaitan's NWO, and are comprised people from the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, and the Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey types of the Theosophical Society. They have heavy ties to the United Nations and UNESCO, and represent the Luciferian initiation, related to the 32nd degree of Freemasonry. The OTO is one of the wickedest clubs known to mankind, and has heavy control over Hollywood and the music industry. Their flavor is summoning demons, jinn, sex magic and mind control, in conjunction with drug use and homosexuality at the highest levels, borrowed from ancient Egyptian and Babylonian magic. Though these members have less clout and power compared to the old order and Zionist, they are still heavily bankrolled and supported, mostly by those who play on multiple sides of pyramid structure. The Bush family is a good example of some that play all sides of triangle, and were heavily used to bring in the NWO program and participated in the false flag disaster known as 9/11. As I left Egypt in 2009 and headed for China, I purged my brain of all this negativity, which has been foisted on us all by those operating sub rosa in an international network called the Cabal, and focused myself on practicing my religion, Islam, and learning the relaxing Chinese martial art known as Tai Chi Chuan. I also began studying Xingyi Quan and Baguazhang, two other famous fisticuff styles. My trip to China lasted 4 months, and I roamed through every park around Beijing, learning the arts that they spent a lifetime honing. The Muslim community in Nuiji was top class, and I sat with many generous believers who cooked delicious dishes and smiled plenty. Soon after this experience, I returned to the US to visit my family before heading to Tunisia. I arrived to Tunisia in June of 2010, 6 months before the Arabic Spring caught fire. I devoted my time to reading, writing, and practicing martial arts while leaving in Tunis, a 5-minute walk from Bourguiba Avenue in the capital. I met a Cameroonian named Ariel Betty, who is a Kung Fu and martial arts instructor, as well as the lead instructor in Tunis for the Kung Fu Federation, Mohamed Gariani. The Arab Spring ejected the President Ben Ali from his post, and there was havoc for a full week in the city. Stores closed for a full week, and I had to subsist on rice and tea. Things cooled down soon after, and I passed a few years reading, writing, and walking around the city. Enjoy the famous shawarma meat wraps, doused in hot pepper, harissa, and stuffed with various fresh vegetables, turkey, and French fries. 2 years passed like this, and then I finally got married to my Tunisian fiancée. Soon after, I moved outside the city to an area called Ariana, Burj Tuile. This was a wonderful time in my life, which I spent in deep reflection and worship before my wedding. During the beginning phase of my marriage, I wrote book from the in-depth investigations I had made from intense study of Dr. Duke's phytochemical database, unlocking many important pharmacodynamics between phytochemical supplementation and biomedical potentiality. The right chemicals provide the right stuff to bring about wondrous changes in the body. So, what would you go for? Neurological enhancement through neurotransmitter optimization? Or boost the power of every cell in the body with a simple chemical that charges the mitochondria and makes you feel supercharged? Or turn on the immune system and boost cell intercommunication through interleukin cell lines by enhancing macrophage, scavenging and killing every cancer cell in your body, and even reversing AIDS? All this is actually possible, but most people haven't done due diligence and mind-mapped these exquisite processes. But guess who has? If you're holding this book, then it's no coincidence. Everything in life is measure for measure. Undoubtedly, there is no such thing as accidental, as much as you might believe it, due to cultural influences at the subconscious level. In my youth, I was taught that knowledge conferred power. As I grew, I realized that knowledge alone is not enough. True power comes from awareness, understanding one's thoughts, feelings, actions, and the external world. Albert Einstein. Chapter 5, Science Hijacked by Illuminism, Islamic Sciences. Written out of history in the West, creating scientism. In the landscape of human knowledge, science is often heralded as the pinnacle of intellectual achievement. Rooted in empirical observation and logical reasoning, science claims its place as the arbiter of truth. However, this narrative bears the heavy imprint of history, particularly the erasure of significant contributions from Islamic scholars. The following exploration delves into the historical context of Islamic sciences, elucidates their foundational role in the development of the scientific method, and examines how the concepts of Illuminism and scientism have shaped modern understandings of knowledge. Historical context of Islamic sciences. The Golden Age of Islam, spanning from the 8th to the 14th century, is a remarkable epoch characterized by unprecedented advancements in various fields, such as mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. During this period, the Muslim world was a rich tapestry of cultures, fostering an environment ripe for intellectual exchange. Key figures and contributions. 1. Al-Khwarizmi. Renowned for his foundational work in algebra, Al-Khwarizmi compiled knowledge from Persian and Indian sources and synthesized it, creating a framework that would influence mathematics for centuries. His seminal book, Al-Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Muqabala, laid the groundwork for solving quadratic equations, thereby ushering in analytical methods used even today. 2. Ibn al-Haytham. Often called the father of optics, Ibn al-Haytham made profound contributions to optics and vision, emphasizing experimentation and rigorous methodology. His work, Book of Optics, elaborated on concepts such as the camera obscura and refraction, demonstrating empirical investigation that foreshadowed the scientific method. 3. Avicenna, Ibn Sina. A polymath whose works in medicine and philosophy became foundational texts in Europe. Avicenna's The Canon of Medicine was a seminal work for centuries. His insights into the scientific method, medical ethics, and the importance of observation established guidelines that would resonate through generations. Together, these luminaries and their contemporaries laid the groundwork for systematic inquiry, emphasizing empirical evidence, critical reasoning, and a thirst for knowledge that went beyond mere accumulation of facts. The origins of the scientific method. Islamic scholars not only preserved the knowledge of the ancient Greeks, but also advanced it through meticulous experimentation and observation. The scientific method, as we know it today, is deeply rooted in their practices. Fundamentals of the scientific method in Islamic science. Empirical observation. Islamic scientists employed careful observation of natural phenomena. The practice of recording observations systematically marked a shift from speculative philosophy to a more evidence-based approach. Hypothesis and experimentation. Scholars like Ibn al-Haytham conducted controlled experiments, formulating hypotheses that they tested through tangible methods. He described systematically understanding light's behavior through experimentation in ways that established principles applicable to future scientific endeavors. Mathematics as language. Islamic scholars integrated mathematics into various disciplines, allowing them to express complex phenomena quantitatively. Algebra, geometry, and trigonometry were essential for advancements in astronomy, medicine, and engineering. Case studies. Ibn al-Haytham's experiments. His work on lenses and light behavior was revolutionary. He conducted experiments documenting the properties of light that led to the development of optical instruments, establishing the connection between hypothesis, experimentation, and conclusions. Clinical trials by al-Razi. Al-Razi's controlled clinical trials in medicine illustrated a commitment to systematic investigation that would later influence the development of modern medical practices. His writings advocated the importance of empirical validation of treatments. The Islamic emphasis on an empirical approach laid essential groundwork for the scientific approach we recognize today. Yet their contributions have often been overshadowed or obscured in the narrative of science. The transition to Western science. The transformation of scientific thought in Europe began during the Renaissance, when knowledge from the Islamic world began to circulate widely. Key texts were translated, often through painstaking efforts, and reintroduced classical ideas layered with Islamic insights. Interactions between Islamic and Western scientists. During the 12th and 13th centuries, numerous scholars dedicated themselves to translating Arabic texts into Latin. Figures like Gerhard of Cremona played pivotal roles in this cultural exchange, subsequently founding universities that adopted these novel ideas. The rejection of Islamic contributions. Although these translations revitalized European intellectual thought, a narrative emerged that sought to erase Islamic contributions. The emergence of Enlightenment thought redefined knowledge, establishing a purely European scientific lineage that disregarded the deep roots embedded in Islamic traditions. The role of Illuminism. What is Illuminism? Illuminism refers to a philosophical and social movement emphasizing enlightenment, knowledge, and Enlightenment's role in societal reformation. Emerging from the Enlightenment, it entailed a broadened perspective but often excluded non-European contributions. The assault on Islamic sciences. As ideas of enlightenment spread, the rise of rationalism and materialism overshadowed the intricate intellectual heritage left by Islamic scientists. The Illuminist ideology distanced itself from the spiritual and teleological frameworks of Islamic scholarship, seeking to establish a secular, empirical worldview. Consequently, the narratives crafted about Western intellectual progress began to vilify or omit Islamic contributions, asserting that science was a European enterprise devoid of external influences. Scientism as a byproduct of historical revisionism. Scientism posits that empirical science represents the sole path to knowledge and understanding of reality. This position leads to the marginalization of other epistemologies, such as philosophy, ethics, and spiritual perspectives. Consequences of scientism. Impact on education. The dominance of scientism in contemporary curricula shapes education, fostering a narrow view that often disregards holistic or integrative approaches to knowledge, alienating fields that may offer essential insights into the human condition and the world around us. Public discourse. In society, narratives have developed where scientific authority has become paramount, leading to skepticism towards alternative perspectives that could enhance understanding, yet are dismissed as unscientific. By framing scientific inquiry through a purely empirical lens, scientism denies the richness and depth that diverse languages of knowledge can bring. In doing so, it not only disregards Islamic contributions, but undermines the genuine pursuit of truth. Rediscovering Islamic science, reevaluating the contributions of Muslim scholars. As historians and scholars continue to investigate the past, there is a growing recognition of the critical contributions made by Islamic scholars to the fabric of scientific knowledge. Restoration projects and academic efforts strive to reclaim these narratives, contextualizing them within the broader tapestry of human intellectual history. Integrating Islamic scientific thought into modern education, curriculum reform, to foster a more inclusive perspective on science. Educational reform should emphasize the contributions of diverse cultures. Incorporating Islamic scientific thought into curricula highlights the interconnectedness of knowledge across cultures and periods. Holistic understanding. Acknowledging the multifaceted nature of knowledge can enhance dialogues between different epistemologies, emphasizing that science does not operate in a vacuum, but is part of a larger conversation that includes morality, philosophy, and cultural context. The hijacking of science by movements like Illuminism and the associated rise of scientism have obscured the rich histories of various cultures, specifically those of Islamic scholars, who laid the groundwork for much of modern scientific inquiry. A renewed understanding of scientific history allows for a richer dialogue between cultures, fostering an appreciation for the diverse sources of knowledge that shape our world today. By recognizing these contributions, we can advocate for a more integrated approach to knowledge that honors the interconnectedness of humanity's intellectual heritage.